prophet, the fifth of the fifth of the minor prophets, Jonah, amen, whose name means dove. It symbolizes basically an advocate of peace, one who is willing to conciliate or to negotiate, one of high spirits and show excitement, warmth. Jonah, the dove, gentle, innocent, the dove. And evidently he wasn't living up to his name because he didn't want God to have mercy on his enemies. Amen. So Jonah, it's a little short book. It's basically dealing with two things: his disobedience and his obedience. His disobedience and his obedience. He was a servant of the Lord, according to 2 Kings 14:25. He was a servant of the Lord. And that's about all it says about him. And then in this first verse of Jonah, it does list his father's name, Amittai, or Mittai, whose name means the true one. He's the true one. Amen. So he is one of four prophets. He's one of four of the Old Testament prophets whose ministry Jesus even referred to in the New Testament. Out of all the prophets, Jesus only referred to Jonah, and he referred to Elijah, and he referred to Elisha, and he referred to Isaiah. So those are the four prophets of the Old Testament that Jesus kind of referred to in the Gospels. He is also a unique prophet in that he is one of the only prophets in the Bible that ran away from God or tried to run away. He tried to run away from God. The only Old Testament prophet who had at least attempt to try to run away from God. And so yeah, Jonah, a unique book in the Old Testament. Some people don't believe that he's the author of the book because he speaks throughout the book in the third person. He talks about himself as if he's not talking himself. And some would debate that he's not the author because all throughout the book he speaks in the third person, like you'll see in verse number 3 of this first chapter. It says, but Jonah. See, that's the third person. He didn't say, but I. He says, but Jonah. You'll see it again in verse number 5, where it says at the end of that verse, but Jonah. In verse number 9, he speaks in the third person again. In verse number 9, when he says to them, I am a Hebrew, referring to himself. And then again, you'll see it in verse number 12, where he speaks over there, where he says, for I know that for my sake this great tempest has come upon you. And then all through chapter 2 verse 1, he speaks, it says, then Jonah. So throughout the book, he speaks in the third person, and a lot of scholars would debate that he's not the author because he's speaking about himself in that form. But that's not a strong enough argument to dismiss him as the author, because we know Moses wrote the first 5 books of the Bible, and he speaks about a lot of his own actions in those books. Isaiah, Daniel, they wrote about themselves in the third person in their books. So some would debate that he wrote the book, but it's kind of hard to refute it, that he didn't or that he did write the book. But the book is really not about Jonah. The book is about God and about, what God is doing in this book. The book is really about God, because he got the first word in the book. Said the word of the Lord. Said the word of the Lord in the beginning of the book, and then he got the last word, chapter 4, verse 11. And then throughout the book, it says that God commanded something to happen to the prophet. God sent a fish. God commanded the fish to vomit up Jonah. God threatened the Ninevites. God provided a vine for Jonah to have shade. Then God commissioned the worm to eat the vine. And God sent a scorcher. And so all throughout the book, it's about God, not about Jonah. It's about God, not about Jonah. So, Jonah, again, is a book that was written, and I think the purpose of the book, it kind of give out a few things why this book was written. It was written basically the message that God was seeking to deliver to Israel. He's trying to send a message to his people through his dealings with Jonah. His dealings with Jonah is a message to his people, and then his